Stop praying like a victim. That's where most people miss it. They approach God like they're approaching a boss who owes them a favor instead of a father who's already given them authority. I used to do it too. I'd kneel down with desperation in my voice, saying, God, please help me. I'm broke. I need a miracle. I thought humility meant begging, but I was wrong. That wasn't humility. That was fear dressed in religious language. God doesn't respond to fear. He responds to faith. When I realized that, my whole approach changed. I stopped seeing prayer as a cry for pity and started seeing it as a declaration of power. I wasn't on earth hoping heaven would do something. I was heaven's representative on earth, commanding things to align with what heaven had already declared. That's the shift that changes everything. You have to come before God like a son, not like a slave. You have to open your mouth with conviction that what you're saying is backed by divine authority. You're not asking for money like a beggar. You're claiming provision like an heir. Every time you say, Lord, please bless me, you subconsciously admit that you don't believe you already are blessed. That's the trap of victim prayer. It looks holy, but it's powerless. When you start praying from victory instead of for victory, the atmosphere around you changes. I remember sitting broke, lights about to go off, debt collectors calling, and I prayed differently that night. I didn't say, God, please help me. I said, Father, I thank you that I am already provided for. I thank you that the money is coming. I thank you that you've given me power to create wealth. That's when I started to feel power rise inside me. My situation didn't change overnight, but my spirit did. The first breakthrough always happens in your mind, not in your wallet. If your mind keeps crying, your life will keep leaking. But if your mind starts declaring, your life will start producing. When you pray like a victim, you hand over your authority to problem. You've the problem. You give power to your poverty. You make lack the loudest voice in your life. But when you pray like a victor, you make God's promise louder than your pressure. A victim says, God, I can't make it. A victor says, God, I already have what I need inside me to make it happen. The difference is mindset. Victims wait for doors to open. Victors kick the doors down. Victims focus on what they lost. Victors focus on what's left and multiply it. The prayer that brings results is the one prayed from power, not pity, because heaven recognizes the sound of faith. When your words carry confidence, heaven echoes back with manifestation. It's not arrogance to pray boldly, it's obedience. God never asked you to beg. He asked you to believe. Most people pray small because they think small. They think God's too busy to handle their financial problems, or maybe they think they're not worthy of abundance. But that's not humility. That's ignorance of identity. The truth is, God delights in your prosperity. He wants you to increase because when you rise, you represent him well. Your success is proof that his promises work. So why approach him like a defeated servant when he calls you his child? The reason you're not seeing financial breakthroughs isn't because heaven is closed, because your mouth is. You've got to speak up. You've got to command what's yours. You've got to pray from a place of authority. Say it out loud. I'm done praying like a victim. I walk in victory. I command resources to locate me. I command opportunities to open. I command divine favor to find me. When your prayer sounds like a general giving orders, instead of a beggar asking for help, you attract divine movement. Because authority attracts attention, the spirit world moves on words. If you speak weakness, you'll live in weakness. If you speak wealth, you'll live in wealth. Every word is a seed, and prayer is the soil where those seeds grow. So if your prayer is filled with fear, your harvest will be scarcity. But if your prayer is filled with faith, your harvest will be abundance. Stop crying for what's already yours. The promises of God aren't up for negotiation. They're guaranteed. You just need to stand on them. Victim prayers sound emotional but powerless. Kingdom prayers sound confident and commanding. You've got to get tired of sounding desperate. You've got to stand up and say, enough. I know who I am. I know what's mine. I'm done begging for breakthroughs. I am the breakthrough. The moment you stop praying like a victim, your spiritual frequency changes. You stop sending out signals of lack and start transmitting faith. And faith is the currency of heaven. That's what gets results. You start walking differently, talking differently, even thinking differently, because once you realize you've been given dominion, you stop asking for permission. You begin to call things that are not as though they already are. You start expecting supply to meet demand. You start thanking God for what's already been released in the unseen. You become unshakable because you know heaven backs your voice. That's when your words start creating your world. Your declarations start producing direction. And your prayer becomes the most powerful tool for financial transformation you've ever had. Your money listens to your voice. That's a truth most people never realize. They think money is just paper, just numbers on a screen, just digits in a system. But money is spiritual before it's physical. It responds to energy, to mindset, to command. The world doesn't respond to need. It responds to faith and authority. When you speak defeat, you program your finances for failure. When you speak faith, you activate multiplication. Every time you say, I'm broke, you give life to lack. Every time you declare, I live in overflow, you give life to abundance. Words are not just sounds, they're seeds. And your financial world is the soil. Whatever you plant through your speech is what grows in your reality. The reason some people never experience increase is because they've built a financial prison with their own tongue. They speak limitation and then wonder why they can't break free from it. I remember when I first discovered this, I used to talk like everyone else. Man, I can't afford that. Money just slips through my fingers. Nothing ever works out for me. I was literally cursing my own progress. I was reinforcing scarcity with every sentence. Then one day I heard something inside me say, stop agreeing with your struggle. That hit me hard because I realized I was empowering the very thing I was trying to escape. I changed my vocabulary. I started saying things like, I always have more than enough. Money flows to me with ease. I am favored in business and in finance. At first it felt strange because my bank account didn't match my confession. But that's where faith lives. It speaks what's true before it becomes visible. Within weeks, opportunities started opening up. People began calling me with business ideas, and I could feel a new energy surrounding me. My words had shifted my environment. When you pray and speak to your finances, you're not just talking into the air. You're talking to something that can hear you. Money is a tool designed to serve you, not control you. It's waiting for instruction. The problem is most people never give it direction. They let fear and frustration speak louder than faith and purpose. You have to understand that everything God created responds to words. Jesus spoke to storms, trees, demons, and even dead bodies, and they all obeyed. If those things could hear and respond, why wouldn't your finances? You've got to treat your money like a soldier under command. You tell it where to go, what to do, and how to multiply. You don't just say, I need more money. You say, money, come into my life from every direction. Business expand, clients find me, opportunities open. You become intentional with your declarations because your words carry power backed by heaven. Every time you open your mouth, you are either aligning with lack or abundance. The universe, the marketplace, the unseen realm, they're all listening. You can't afford to speak casually about your finances. You can't joke about being broke and expect wealth to take you seriously. Your words are commands, and the atmosphere doesn't understand humor. It takes you literally. So when you say, I'm drowning in bills, don't be surprised when more bills come. When you say, money comes easily and frequently, don't be shocked when unexpected income shows up. You're the architect of your financial future, and your mouth is the blueprint. What you declare determines what you attract. You can't attract prosperity while speaking poverty. You can't manifest success while confessing struggle. When I began to speak life into my finances, I noticed a strange shift, not just in my bank account, but in my confidence. I walked differently. I thought bigger. I started expecting to win instead of fearing to lose. That's the real transformation, because your finances can't rise higher than your faith. You can't out-earn your beliefs. You can only earn what your mindset allows you to receive. That's why your words matter. They reveal your belief system. If you keep saying it's hard to make money, your subconscious will make sure it stays hard. But if you start saying, wealth flows easily to me, your brain will start finding ways to make that true. Your mouth activates your mind, and your mind activates manifestation. You are constantly programming your future with the sentences you speak today. When I prayed for financial breakthrough, I didn't just cry for it, I spoke to it. I spoke to my debts and told them they'd be canceled. I spoke to my business and commanded it to grow. I spoke to opportunities and told them to locate me. It wasn't about arrogance. It was about alignment. I was aligning my voice with heaven's decree. The Bible says, you shall decree a thing, and it shall be established unto you. That's not poetry. That's a principle. Declarations create direction. Command creates motion. Every time you speak abundance, you push poverty further out of your life. You create an invisible pull that draws resources, people, and doors into your path. You have to get bold about it. Don't whisper your breakthrough. Declare it. Don't speak like a victim. Command like a king. Your financial world is waiting for your words. Stop agreeing with lack. Stop confessing failure. Stop feeding fear. Open your mouth and build the life you were created to live. Your words are your wealth. Speak like someone who already owns the blessing, and watch everything around you start aligning to match it. You can't pray for increase while living like you expect decrease. That's the mistake most people make. They get fired up in prayer. They declare abundance. They shout for breakthrough, and then they go right back to living broke habits. Faith isn't magic. It's motion. If your actions don't line up with what you prayed for, you're canceling your own request. When I prayed that prayer for financial breakthrough, I realized it couldn't stop at words. I had to move like I believed what I said. I couldn't just talk about overflow. I had to prepare for it. I couldn't just ask for opportunities. I had to be ready to seize them. Faith without aligned action is just noise. You can't say you're believing for a promotion while showing up late to work. You can't ask for a business breakthrough while treating your business like a hobby. You can't pray for more clients while never investing in your skills or marketing. That's not faith. That's fantasy. Faith moves. Faith builds. Faith organizes. Faith takes territory. When I was completely broke, I remember sitting in my small apartment after praying that powerful prayer. I said, God, I believe you've released increase over my life. But then I looked around and realized my environment didn't look like someone expecting increase. My desk was cluttered. My schedule was sloppy. My mindset was lazy. I had prayed for more, but I hadn't prepared for it. So I got up and started shifting everything. I cleaned my space, organized my plans, wrote down my goals, and mapped out strategies. I treated my current season like it was the foundation for the next one. And something happened. I started feeling expectation rise inside me. My faith became alive because my actions were finally in agreement with my words. When your movement matches your mouth, miracles manifest. You can't keep waiting for signs from heaven while ignoring the instructions heaven already gave you. Prayer opens the door, but discipline walks through it. Some people pray for increase, but their spending habits scream decrease. They waste what they already have and expect more to come. But God doesn't bless disorganization. He multiplies stewardship. The parable of the talents wasn't about talent, it was about trust. The master gave more to the one who managed well. If you want financial breakthrough, start mastering what's already in your hand. Manage it with excellence, even if it's small. If you only have 100, treat it like it's 10 Zalozen. Budget it, invest it, grow it. Show heaven that you can handle abundance, because how you treat the little determines if you'll ever see the large. Alignment is everything. You can't declare wealth and operate in poverty habits. You can't say, I'm walking in overflow while hanging around people who complain about lack. You can't pray for financial wisdom while ignoring learning opportunities that could make you sharper. Every action, every choice, every thought has to align with your declaration. When I prayed that prayer, I didn't just sit and hope. I made calls. I reached out to mentors. I read books on business, finance, and faith. I sowed seeds into other people's lives. I position myself for the promise. And that's what most people miss, positioning. You can't catch blessings you're not positioned for. You've got to get in the environment of growth, the atmosphere of expectation, the rhythm of excellence. That's where breakthrough finds you. When you align your habits with your prayer, you send a clear message to heaven, I'm ready. That readiness attracts resources. That preparation pulls opportunities. Some people think they're waiting on God, but truthfully, God is waiting on them to get in position. You can't pray for a harvest if you've never planted a seed. You can't pray for increase if you keep spending like you're broke. You can't pray for divine ideas if you never make time to think. You've got to build structures that can sustain what you're asking for. Blessings without systems lead to breakdown. So build systems, organize your money, create a vision for your finances, set targets, track progress. When you manage what you've got with excellence, heaven releases what's next. One of the greatest lies people believe is that prayer replaces action. No, prayer directs action. It gives it power. It gives it focus. Prayer without motion is empty. I've seen people pray for business success for years, but never create a product, never make a pitch, never show up. They wait for miracles while ignoring momentum. But faith is both spiritual and strategic. When you believe God for something, you start moving toward it like it's already done. That's why I changed my mindset from someday to today. I started acting as if the breakthrough was already here. I spoke differently. I planned differently. I worked differently, because belief isn't proven by what you say. It's proven by how you behave after you say it. When I began aligning my daily habits with the prayer I had prayed, my reality caught up to my declaration. Clients appeared. Income streams opened. Debt started melting away. Not because the prayer alone did it, but because I partnered my faith with focused effort. Every seed of prayer needs the water of action to grow. You can't control the timing of the harvest, but you can control the preparation for it. That's what alignment looks like, living in such a way that if the answer showed up today, you'd be ready to receive it. That's the moment where faith becomes power, where vision becomes visible, and where breakthrough stops being something you talk about and becomes something you live. You want to unlock heaven's economy. Start giving when it hurts. That's the law most people avoid, the principle they skip over, the part that separates talkers from transformers. Everyone loves to pray for abundance, but very few are willing to release anything to create it. I used to be that person. I'd pray, fast, cry, and beg for financial miracles, but my hands were closed. I was holding so tightly to what I had that nothing new could flow in. You can't receive when your fists are clenched. Giving is the key that opens divine flow. It's not about losing. It's about loosening. It's about breaking the control that fear has over your money. When you give, especially when it stretches you, something spiritual happens. You declare that you trust the source more than the supply. You prove that money doesn't rule you. You rule it. When I was broke, giving made no sense. I'd look at my tiny bank balance and think, there's no way I can afford to give right now. But then I realized that's exactly why I needed to. I had to break that fear of lack. So one day I did it. I gave when it hurt. I gave what I thought I couldn't afford to lose. And that's when the flow started, not because I manipulated God with an offering, but because I aligned myself with his principle. Giving isn't about charity. It's about authority. Every time you give, you plant yourself in the system of abundance. You say, I believe in the law of seed and harvest more than I believe in scarcity. You can't pray for harvest if you've never planted seed. People who hold back because of fear always stay in cycles of lack, but those who give with faith unlock cycles of supernatural provision. There's something powerful about sacrificial giving. It shifts your perspective from survival to expansion. When you give, even though you're in need, you tell heaven, I'm ready for bigger, because that kind of faith gets heaven's attention. The widow with 2 coins didn't give out of overflow. She gave out of obedience. That's why her story still echoes through time. It's not the amount that moves heaven. It's the level of faith behind it. The world teaches you to hold on, to save, to protect what you have, but the kingdom operates differently. It says, give, and it shall be given unto you. not maybe, not someday. It's a guarantee. The seed leaves your hand, but it never leaves your life. It multiplies somewhere else. The problem is most people are too focused on what's leaving to see what's coming. They focus on the cost, not the harvest. I remember once I was down to my last bit of savings. Bills were stacked, pressure was heavy, and I heard that inner voice say, "Sow it." Everything in me screamed no. Logically, it made zero sense, but I obeyed. I gave it, not to manipulate, not to impress, but out of trust. And a few days later, I got a call for a deal I hadn't expected. It brought in 5 times what I gave. That moment taught me something permanent. Giving is not loss, it's leverage. It's not subtraction, it's multiplication in disguise. Every act of giving is a declaration that you believe in the flow of divine economy more than the fear of running out. And when you live by that principle, money begins to chase you instead of you chasing it. The hardest part about giving is that your flesh resists it. Your mind screams scarcity while your spirit whispers faith. But you have to train yourself to trust the whisper, because that's where the miracle begins. When you give in seasons of comfort, that's convenience. When you give in seasons of struggle, that's covenant. And heaven always responds to covenant, faith. You break the back of poverty, not by hoarding, but by releasing. Every time you give, you loosen the grip of greed and fear that tries to control your life. That's why giving hurts sometimes. It's tearing away the part of you that still doubts. But on the other side of that pain is peace, provision, and power. When you hold back, you stay in control. But when you give, you hand control back to God. That's where the supernatural begins. Giving breaks the limits of your natural resources. It opens invisible doors. It connects you to opportunities your logic can't explain. People start remembering your name. Favor finds you. Ideas start coming, and everything you touch begins to multiply. You can't outgive God, not in time, not in money, not in energy. The more you release, the more he refills. It's the law of divine exchange, but it only works when you trust it. So every time you feel fear, when you think about giving, that's the exact signal you should do it, because that fear is the barrier between your current level and your next one. I learned to lean into that fear and turn it into faith. I made giving my lifestyle, not a one-time act. Every paycheck, every increase, every blessing, I give something, because I know giving keeps me connected to the flow. It keeps my mindset in abundance. It keeps me in rhythm with the source. And once you understand that rhythm, you never worry about running out again, because giving when it hurts doesn't make you poorer. It makes you dangerous to poverty itself. Poverty doesn't start in your wallet. It starts in your mind. It's not the absence of money that keeps people trapped. It's the presence of limitation in their thinking. I used to think poverty was just about not having enough cash, not having opportunities, not having connections. But I learned the truth. It was my thoughts that were bankrupt, not my bank account. The moment I changed the way I thought, everything around me began to shift. The problem isn't the bills, the debt, or the paycheck. It's the belief system that says, this is all I'll ever have. That's the voice you've got to silence. That's the mindset you've got to evict. You can't live in abundance while thinking lack. You can't pray for overflow while carrying the attitude of shortage. Poverty thinking is sneaky. It disguises itself as being realistic. It tells you to play it safe, stay small, not dream too big. But every time you choose fear over faith, you shrink your future. When I prayed that prayer for financial breakthrough, one of the first things I asked God to do was to rewire my mind, because if he gave me wealth without changing my mindset, I would have lost it anyway. You don't need more money. You need more revelation. You don't need a bigger income. You need a bigger internal vision. I used to think I can't afford this until I started asking, how can I afford this? That small shift changed everything. Poor people see obstacles. Wealthy thinkers see options. The poverty mindset looks at the price tag. The abundance mindset looks at the purpose. It's not about how much something costs. It's about what it's worth. If you see everything as an expense instead of an investment, you'll never multiply what's in your hand. I had to confront the thoughts that kept me small. I used to think wealth was for others, people with better connections, better education, better luck. I was wrong. Wealth starts with willingness, not luck. It's about willingness to learn, willingness to grow, willingness to see yourself as someone who deserves to prosper. You can't attract what you secretly resent. If you think rich people are greedy, you'll subconsciously push away wealth because you don't want to become what you despise. I had to stop demonizing prosperity. I had to stop saying money doesn't matter while simultaneously crying about not having enough of it. Poverty thinking keeps you double-minded, praying for success while secretly distrusting it. Once I aligned my thoughts with truth, that conflict disappeared. I realized God doesn't want you broke to prove your humility. He wants you blessed to prove his goodness. Everything starts with identity. If you see yourself as someone struggling to get by, you'll always operate from survival mode. But if you see yourself as someone created for dominion, you'll start operating from abundance. The mind is the battlefield where financial wars are won or lost. You've got to start catching those poverty thoughts and replacing them with words of power. When the thought comes that says, you'll never make it, you counter it with, I'm already equipped to win. When it whispers, you can't afford it, you respond, resources are coming from unexpected places. When it says, you've failed too much, you declare, every failure is a setup for a comeback. The only difference between broke thinkers and wealthy thinkers is how they talk to themselves. Wealthy people use their imagination to create solutions. Poor thinkers use it to create excuses. You can't let your past define your capacity. Maybe you grew up around lack, around people who said money doesn't grow on trees, around parents who struggled every day just to survive. That environment planted seeds of limitation, but you can choose to uproot them. You can decide that the curse ends with you. You can decide that your children will never know the feeling of lack, but it starts with you transforming the way you think. The Bible says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's not just a spiritual idea. It's a financial principle. Renew your mind, renew your money. You can't expect to prosper thinking thoughts of fear, doubt, and insufficiency. You've got to start thinking on the level you want to live on, even when the evidence doesn't match. Hold the vision. See yourself in overflow. See yourself owning, building, giving, expanding. Poverty thinking makes you reactive. Abundance thinking makes you proactive. The poor wait for things to happen. The prosperous make things happen. The poor focus on problems. The prosperous focus on possibilities. I had to start thinking like a producer, not a consumer. Poverty says, what can I get? Prosperity says, what can I create? That's how the wealthy operate. They see themselves as creators, not just earners. When I shifted into that mindset, ideas started flowing. I stopped waiting for a paycheck and started building systems that could generate income. That's what freedom looks like, not just having money, but having a mind that knows how to make it, manage it, and multiply it. You have to reject every thought that tells you you're not worthy of wealth. You have to kill the excuses that keep you small. Every time you say, it's too hard, not smart enough, I don't have the connections, you're giving life to limitation. Replace those thoughts with words of power. Say, I'm anointed to create wealth. Say, money serves me, not the other way around. Say, I'm open to divine opportunities. The moment your mind aligns with abundance, the doors you thought were locked start opening, because the battle for your financial breakthrough isn't fought in your wallet. It's fought in your thoughts. And the moment you win there, everything else follows. Gratitude is the magnet that pulls miracles into your life. It's the invisible signal that tells heaven, I'm ready to receive. Most people are waiting until their situation changes before they thank God, but that's not faith. That's reaction. Gratitude before manifestation is the proof of true belief. When I was broke, when I was facing financial pressure that didn't make sense, I made a decision to thank God like the breakthrough had already happened. I didn't wait for the bank account to change. I didn't wait for the deal to close. I didn't wait for the call that said everything was fixed. I thanked him right in the middle of the storm. I thanked him when I didn't feel like it. I thanked him when it looked like nothing was working. And that posture of gratitude became the foundation of my faith. Because when you thank God in advance, you're declaring that you trust him completely. You're saying, I don't need to see it to believe it. I know it's already done. That's the mindset that moves heaven. Gratitude isn't passive. It's not polite. It's powerful. It's an act of war against doubt. Every time you say, thank you, in the face of lack, you're crushing fear under your feet. Every time you thank God for abundance before it shows up, you're pulling that abundance closer to you. I've seen people pray for years for breakthrough, but never step into it because they never learned the power of pre-Thanksgiving. They beg, they cry, they plead, but they never praise. And praise is what makes your faith alive. Gratitude is the language of victory. It's the voice of someone who already knows the outcome. When you're thankful before the evidence, you're operating on a supernatural frequency. You're telling the universe, I already possess what I'm believing for. When I prayed that financial breakthrough prayer, I remember ending it with gratitude. I didn't list what I needed. I listed what I was grateful for. I thanked God for giving me the power to create wealth. I thanked him for open doors that I hadn't even seen yet. I thanked him for divine connections that were being orchestrated behind the scenes. And as I spoke those words, peace filled my heart. That peace was the sign that heaven heard me, because gratitude changes your internal climate before it changes your external condition. You stop vibrating at desperation and start vibrating at expectation. You stop operating in worry and start moving in worship. That's when creativity comes. That's when ideas flow. That's when favor finds you. You can't mix gratitude with complaint. They cancel each other out. Some people spend 10 seconds thanking God and the rest of the day complaining about what's not working. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Gratitude has to become your lifestyle, not your moment. You wake up thankful, you move thankful, you speak thankful. You thank him not just for what you have, but for what's on the way. You don't need to wait until the promotion comes, until the check clears, until the business takes off. Thank him now, because when you thank him now, you're showing faith now. And faith is the key that unlocks supernatural acceleration. I've noticed something about grateful people. They attract more. When you appreciate what you have, you make room for more of it. When you despise what you have, you block your own flow. Gratitude multiplies. Complaining subtracts. That's a law. If you're always talking about what you don't have, you're training your mind to see scarcity. But if you're always acknowledging what's already working, you're training your spirit to expect increase. The wealthy aren't just strategic, they're thankful. They know that gratitude opens doors that hustle alone can't, because gratitude keeps your heart soft, your spirit open, and your vision clear. It reminds you that everything you have came from a source bigger than you. When I was struggling, I started a gratitude journal. Every night, no matter how bad things looked, I wrote down 10 things I was thankful for. Some nights, I had to dig deep to find them, but I forced myself to see the good. I thank God for strength, for ideas, for favor, for food, even for lessons that came through pain. That habit changed my focus. Instead of obsessing over lack, I started noticing opportunity. Instead of seeing closed doors, I saw new ones opening. Gratitude doesn't just change what you have, it changes how you see. And when your perception changes, your position changes. Gratitude also keeps pride in check. When you're thankful, you stay grounded. You remember that success isn't self-made, it's God-given. It reminds you to keep your heart right even when your hands get full. Because abundance without gratitude turns into arrogance, and arrogance kills flow. The moment you start thinking you don't need to give thanks anymore, you start disconnecting from the source. Gratitude is what keeps the pipeline of blessing open. It's the difference between temporary gain and sustained growth. There's something divine about thanking God in advance. It's like signing the receipt for a blessing you haven't even unwrapped yet. It's saying, I've already received it in my spirit, so I'll praise you until it shows up in my hands. That's how faith speaks. That's how miracles manifest. Gratitude turns waiting into worship, and worship turns waiting into winning. The moment you start living in that state of thankfulness, you stop chasing blessings because blessings start chasing you. Every door that was stuck starts swinging open. Every delay starts turning into delivery, because gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's a frequency that heaven recognizes instantly.